Breaking news today. Is the conflict in Ukraine helping or hurting the Russian economy? Russia's economy is expected to have had a mild downturn last year, face a modest rebound this year, and enjoy healthy growth in 2024, according to an IMF assessment that will be released this week. In contrast to the oligarch Oleg Deripaska's prediction last month that international sanctions would drain the Kremlin's finances by next year, this seems to contradict the warning issued shortly after the invasion that the country faced a contraction of up to 15%. Some experts have argued that the IMF's emphasis on traditional economic measures like gross domestic product, GDP, is misplaced while a war is ongoing and military spending is on the rise. When this is factored out, the recession last year was found to have been twice as bad as official figures suggest, according to an analysis conducted by the Center for Policy Research, CEPR, network of academics. What do the statistics show? In 2022, Russia's GDP fell, but not as much as many predicted it would. The IMF predicted in February that the economy of 145 million people would fall by a mild 2% in 2022, rise by 0.3% in 2023, and then rebound to almost 2% in 2024. This would send a message that the economy was strong and able to weather the extra costs of war. Spending on the military, however, is included in this calculation, and it has skyrocketed ever since the invasion began, especially since the introduction of mandatory military service for 120,000 civilians just last year. Princeton-based sanctions expert and CEPR member Mikhail Mamonov cautions against using GDP as a guide for any country directly involved in a war, but particularly Russia, where the official figures are likely to be massaged. Retail spending has dropped by 10%, he said, indicating a severe contraction in the real economy. Is this true for the rest of the economy as well? In order to gauge private sector activity, economists Adrian Schmith of the European Central Bank and Hanna Sachno of the University of Groningen collaborated on a CEPR study that looked at more than just consumer spending. It uses information from 15 different places, like Google searches, airline bookings, and real estate transactions. When the focus was shifted away from military activity, the two found that Russia's recession last year was more severe and widespread than the official figures indicated. Although a definitive assessment excluding all aspects of military spending was impossible, they claimed private consumption fell by 4% rather than the 1.8% in the official numbers. Official statistics provide some insight into the civilian economy's losses as well. Imports of goods into Russia were down roughly 20% year-over-year in December 2022, with imports of technology down 30%. While sanctions on essential components remain in place, manufacturers were forced to slash production last year by as much as 67% for automobiles, 53% for excavation machinery, and 36% for television receivers. People still going shopping? The war has had an effect on the psyche of the average shopper, as evidenced by the precipitous drop in retail sales. A reduction in spending that began in March of last year is predicted to continue throughout the year as a result of a shortage of necessities and wants. To make matters worse, Russian families have one of the highest deposit savings rates in the developed world at 32% as they put away money in anticipation of a possible economic collapse. The UK has a much lower savings rate of 9%. Is it becoming too much to pay for the war to continue? It is reasonable to assume that there is not much money left in Moscow, according to Oleg Itskoky, a Russian émigré and sanctions expert at the University of California. Defense spending has increased from 4.1% of GDP in 2021 to 7% last year, he says, due to higher payroll costs associated with enlisting conscripted soldiers and the need to purchase additional military hardware to replace destroyed tanks and expended rockets. Child benefits and aid to families who have suffered losses in the conflict have further depleted Russia's already dwindling coffers. The ripple effect on federal spending as a whole has been substantial. The State Statistics Office reported a 59% increase in January, which is probably low. Is there a limited supply of funds? government revenue is declining at an alarming rate, and spending has increased. Workers in Russia earn low wages, pay low taxes, and make up a small fraction of the country's total population of retirees. World Bank projections for 2021 show a stark contrast between the UK's $46,510 per capita income and the US's $12,200, £9,875 per capita income, both of which reflect this trend. Workers in Russia currently face a flat 13% income tax rate. However, this will increase to 15% in 2021 for those making over 5 million rubles annually, about $49,000. While this generated an additional 83 billion rubles in its first year, this is a tiny fraction of the revenues the Russian government receives from the sale of oil and gas.